Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We are out here with the rabbits on this sunny day, but it's windy and it's very, very chilly. So today I wanted to answer a question I got about rabbit pedigrees, as we've been talking about showing your rabbits and whether a pedigree is necessary, whether it's useful, that kind of thing. And someone asked, can pedigrees be faked? And unfortunately, the answer is yes. So let's just talk about that for a minute. So a pedigree is just basically a list of your rabbit's parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. Okay, that's the extent of a pedigree. That's as far back as it goes. And rabbit pedigrees are not like dog pedigrees, and they're not like, for example, Shadowfax, our mini horse. He's registered. He has a pedigree. The difference in your horses and your dogs versus your rabbits is the horses and the dogs have central registries that track the parents, and then you register the litter or the foal or whatever with the same association, and there's a record. So when you get a pedigree for a dog, that pedigree is from the AKC, the American Kennel Club, or the CKC, the Canadian Kennel Club, or some kind of kennel club. The pedigree for your horse, the lineage for your horse, you get a certificate showing that lineage from the registering association. In Shadowfax's case, he's a miniature horse, so he's with the American Miniature Horse Association. So I have his certificate all printed out. There's nothing like that for rabbits. So when you get a rabbit, so our Rexes are fully pedigreed. Our female Rexes here are fully pedigreed. Deli there's been to shows. These younger ones haven't. Deli there's a show bunny. Everyone in this pen is pedigreed except Bonnie. Bonnie's a Flemish. He's purebred, but he's not pedigreed. And these guys are pedigreed because that's Falcon, and he's pedigreed. And that is Rowan, and he's pedigreed. So these guys are pedigreed. You're not, Bonnie. I'm sorry. We love you, but you're not pedigreed. So with horses and dogs, you get a certificate from the registering agency. Whether it's a kennel club or a horse registry or whatever it is, you get a certificate. You don't do that with rabbits. With rabbits, when you have a litter, when a breeder who breeds pedigreed rabbits has a litter, they literally print off a bunch of blank pedigrees, they fill them out, and that's it. Now, I sign the pedigree stating that to the best of my knowledge, this pedigree is true, blah, blah, blah. And I sign, this is the person who bought this rabbit. I fill out the date, the birth date of the bunny, all that kind of stuff. I sign it stating that to the best of my knowledge, this pedigree is true. But there is not an agency that is verifying these pedigrees outside of that. Okay? There's not an agency that is checking that. It is really reliant on the ethics of the breeder to give you a proper pedigree, to not just fill it out any which way. And yes, sometimes an unethical breeder, especially if the buyer says, I'm only interested in pedigreed rabbits, they might fill in some of that pedigree. So it's pretty common for rabbits to be partially pedigreed, meaning some of the ancestors, but not all of them. And so you provide that partial pedigree, and you're all well and good. Sometimes an unethical breeder will take that partial pedigree and kind of fill it out and hope for the best, hope nobody notices, and the majority of the time nobody notices. So is it possible that the pedigree for your rabbit is faked? Yes. Does it matter? Not necessarily. So it matters if you were out there going, I only want a pedigreed rabbit. I only want a pedigreed rabbit, and the Breeder definitely should not be lying to you. Absolutely should not be lying to you. However, okay, and this is a big however, rabbits are shown by phenotype, not genotype. What they look like as opposed to what their lineage is, what their genes are. So it is possible to show a rabbit, even if the pedigree is suspect, as long as they meet the breed standard. And it is possible to pedigree rabbits, like if you think it's suspect, you can just disregard the pedigree or disregard the parts you're not sure about and just start pedigreeing from when you get the rabbits. Okay? You get the rabbit and you just start keeping track when you breed, whose dad is who, that kind of thing. So, should people be basically faking pedigrees? No. Does it happen a lot? No. It doesn't need to happen a lot. Now, it doesn't need to happen a lot because it's not integral to the existence of your rabbit. You can show the rabbit with a pedigree or not, right? As long as they meet the breed standard, you are okay. So, you don't necessarily have to have that pedigree. So most people will not bother faking one because it's not necessarily any better. Okay? It's not necessarily any better. It doesn't indicate the quality of your rabbit. You can know the rabbit, the parents and the grandparents and the great-grandparents going back 20 generations. And that doesn't necessarily mean that rabbit is a better quality rabbit than the unpedigreed one at the animal auction. So it doesn't matter as much as you think it might. Okay? It doesn't matter as much as you think it might. So most breeders are not even going to bother faking a pedigree because what's the point? It doesn't actually get you anywhere. Generally, you're not going to be able to charge more for a rabbit with a pedigree versus one without. You're charging based on the quality of the rabbit itself, not the pedigree of the rabbit. Because even if you're showing your rabbits, they don't care about the pedigree. When you're showing your rabbits, they care about the quality of your rabbit. So your rabbit having a more impressive pedigree will not up your chances of having a good result. Okay? So it's rare that someone would fake a pedigree. When they do fake it, they probably are going to get away with it. Just because there is no agency checking. Nobody's double checking and making sure that every single rabbit you've got is having the correct pedigree. You might get caught. So the only breeder I know who got caught was because she said that her rabbits were from a lineage of another breeder. And he took exception to that because he'd never sold her a rabbit. And he knew for a fact that the rabbits she was selling were not his line. And he didn't want that to be a thing. He didn't want, hi Silverado, you're beautiful, honey. But he did not want to be associated with that. So that's the only person I know personally who's gotten caught. So should you care about pedigrees? Maybe. If that's what you're after. Maybe you should care about pedigrees. Is it likely that someone's going to fake it? No. Like, what's the point? Some of the rabbits I sell are only partially pedigreed instead of fully pedigreed. And that's mostly because when I got the parent wasn't fully pedigreed. But it's not a big deal. I fill out the pedigree to the best of my knowledge, leave blank what I don't know. And the buyers know that it's a partially pedigreed rabbit. And it's not a big deal. Most buyers aren't buying the pedigree. So there's very little to be gained from pretending a pedigree that doesn't exist. And if you're dealing with a long-time breeder like me, I've owned the parents and the grandparents and the great-grandparents of these guys for years. So her pedigree is entirely rabbits that I have owned. So once you're dealing with an established breeder that's been around for a little while, there's really not a reason to try and fake it because the rabbits are all here. Why would I bother? Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does. it's not common. So you really shouldn't worry too much about pedigrees being faked in the rabbit world, because ultimately they don't have as much meaning as sometimes you would think. They are just a way of keeping track, and it's a good way if you're going to get into breeding rabbits. If you can get your hands on the pedigrees, you can make sure you're not breeding close siblings, because nobody wants that. It's just a way to keep track. So the pedigrees have value, yes. That's why I provide pedigrees. Sometimes I don't always provide them, depends on the buyer and the rabbit. But pedigrees have some value. They are not worth getting in a twist over. Now, don't buy from somebody who you know is faking pedigrees. Don't do that, because don't support that kind of nonsense. But ultimately, if the rabbit is a quality rabbit, then that rabbit is a quality rabbit, regardless of pedigree. So look for quality. Look for personality, like you, man. See, he's not pedigreed, but we're going to get him a girlfriend anyway, because he has such such wonderful personality. He's a beautiful boy. So you want to look more at personality, more at the quality of the rabbits. Do they meet the breed standard, especially if you're going to get into showing? That all matters more than the actual pedigree. So, is it possible to fake them? Yes. Is it common? No. Okay, so don't worry about that too much. Just get the best rabbits you can to start, and enjoy being a rabbit parent to your new fuzzy friends, because that's what matters. And here's Silverado again. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.